So I did a video about how India is going to go to 100% electric vehicles in their country by 2030. And I talked about this article that relates to it, which is the shrinking oil industry. It was in truthdig.com on May 16th. It was written by Paul Brown and of the Climate News Network. So what this goes into, and it relates to everything that I've been talking about on this show, is the article goes into, and the link is below, the persistent price of the persistent low price of oil, the oil prices keep going down. And OPEC has been shutting down production. They've been trying to do anything to drive the oil prices back up. The oil industry loves it when it's $120 a barrel versus the $50, $60 it's at right now. It hit an all-time low of $40 a barrel. So it screws us over, but that makes them more money, which is again why a lot of these wars in the Middle East and anything that we can do to jack the price of oil back up, more instability in the Middle East, more wars in the Middle East jack up the price of oil, which is good. And OPEC, which is the Saudis basically, and we're their henchmen, we're the Saudis' henchmen with our big bad military. We, enforce our laws. That's what I've talked about, the Syria, the oil pipeline that we're trying to get in there. And so this article goes into a huge chunk of the oil industry's workforce has been slowly depleting. It's like 30-35% from 2014 through 16. Because there's less demand, and so many other countries, like I talked about India, but also I think it's even Sweden or another country said by 2024 they're going to go all electric. Like a bunch of countries are just saying we got to get out of oil. We got to get out of oil, and this greedy country won't do it. And when you got Trump in office, and then Obama that talks a good environment game and passed some decent environmental legislation, but then kind of lets the pipeline happen. He let the DAPL pipeline happen and didn't do anything about it till late in the game. So, and Bush obviously was an oil guy. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then you've got people, I reported on Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, who was paid by oil industries to come down to Houston and give a talk, because there's a bunch of oil up in Canada that he wants to get at. So don't trust these people, and anyone that's connected to big oil, like Rex Tillerson, the former ExxonMobil CEO, who is now Secretary of State. And this article goes into some stuff with ExxonMobil. The New York Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission have both opened investigation into ExxonMobil's accounting practices and how the company factored environmental change into its financial reporting. So, yeah, it talks about how everything, and this is the climate bubble thing that I've been talking about in this article right here. So, outside of the oil industry, commentators are not so sure about everything. The constant expansion of the oil majors for more than a century has gone into reverse. The industry is suffering from competition from biofuels on one side and electric vehicles on the other. More manufacturers have been forced by regulation to make vehicles more efficient, and expanding markets such as India and China are moving fast to cut pollution, as I've said. India passed that law. China's going to start doing it. This has led to the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis warning investors to get out of ExxonMobil shares. So that's what so much of this is about, guys. They're warning investors. They're not worried about the hippie environmental groups. They're worried about big money people pulling out of oil. The hippie groups, whatever. Have your Earth Day rally. We don't give a shit. But if this company or hedge fund or whatever with $200 million is pulling out, now we're in trouble. Now we're in trouble. So this is why I talk about voting with your dollars and why everything comes down to money and oil when it's all said and done. So it says the decline in the price of oil. This is what the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis that told people to get out of ExxonMobil. The decline in the price of oil from a maximum of $147 to $50 leaves the company unable to cover the massive costs of operations and investment. The empire is bound to shrink, taking the price of shares down with it. According to the International Business Times, the company may be in a, quote, death spiral. Quoting the IEEFA, that's the group I just mentioned, report, it says that while Texas-based ExxonMobil may be considered the world's largest oil company, there are danger signs about its future. The company was established in 1990 after a merger of separate companies, Exxon and Mobil. In April, Standard & Poor's Global Ratings Service demoted ExxonMobil's perfect AA credit score to AA+. That's a big deal. For the first time since the Great Depression of the 1930s. And it's also come under fire for not being transparent. So that's the real thing that's happening, okay? And that's the thing we all need to be paying close attention to. It's also the reason, like, if you're just an investor, if anyone out there's like, whatever, Graham, I don't, environment, schmeierment, I'm just looking to invest, I would pull it the fuck out of oil and I would put it into clean energy. That's another way too, if I talk about taking action and voting with your dollars. And protest rallies are good and stuff like that, but you really want to affect them? Because that's what ExxonMobil is listening to. Investors pulling out, going from a AAA to a AA+ rating. That's what's making them listen. So if you're just like, even if you got like, you and your spouse or significant other or whatever, just you, anyone, you're like, oh, I got $500 to invest or a couple of grand to invest in. Don't invest in oil or pull it out of oil and put it into clean energy because the whole world's going that way. Put it into electric cars because India just said that they want their population of 1 billion people, it's going to be all electric by 2030. They said that. I would invest in electric cars in India. I would invest in marijuana in the state of California if I had the money. I'd buy a pot farm like that because it's going to be recreationally legal effective January 1, 2018. That's what I'm saying. That's why I talk about voting with your dollars, because if the market says we're done with oil, then we'll actually get some environmental legislation on the books. And we'll get jackasses like Trump out of there. And again, it goes back to the same thing. I hate being a broken record, but it's true. If we had real progressives on the left, real progressive leadership within the Democratic Party, we would be like, line in the sand, we are not budging from clean energy. Climate change is here. We have to do something about it. And if you had a smart person, we all can make a lot of money going to clean energy. We could all build a lot of jobs in America. So this is the kind of reporting I like seeing, and this is why I go to truthdig.com. I'll give you one little stat here. According to research by oil and gas consulting service Rystad Energy, about 300,000 people in the oil sector have lost their jobs between 2014 and 16. That is about 35% of the total workforce of the world's top 50 oil field service companies. It was the North American shale industry that took the largest single reduction, with two of the largest land drillers, Nabors Industries and Helmerich and Payne, announcing a series of staff cuts, resulting in an overall reduction of more than 50%. International companies tend to be working on larger long-term projects, took more modest cuts between 20 and 30%, but these are still substantial. It's going away. Oil is going away. This is their Trump is their last grasp, their last thing before they die into the good night. So if you're working in the oil industry, I would find other work. Seriously, because you're going to be out of a job soon. Trump might get it to spike a little bit by some of his crazy bullshit, but it won't last long because the global market is going to say otherwise. Think about this. I'm going to say this again. 1 billion people in India are going to be done with electric cars in the next 13 years. 13 by 2030, they said. So the next 13 years, it's just like, get out, oil. So vote with your dollars, petition lawmakers. Don't. And it's great when you pull your money out of the oil. Like I pulled my money out of the banks and stuff like that, the Wells Fargo, and put it into a credit union. If you want to learn about that, go to defunddapple.org and it'll show you what banks are funding the Dakota Access Pipeline and other pipelines like it, and what credit unions they recommend and stuff like that. And of course, I don't see these stories there. You know, is CNN talking about this? I don't know. Maybe. Is MSNBC talking about this? Maybe not. Not when ExxonMobil buys ad time. ExxonMobil buys ad time on those fucking networks, man. And there's that one with the girl and the millennial scientist with the lab coat standing in the thing with all the cool green stuff. We're making green energy at ExxonMobil. No, no, no. You're scrambling for your life, and you're hoping that having the Secretary of State be one of your guys is going to help save your dead business. Thanks for watching, you guys. Like, subscribe, sharing these videos is awesome, as are all of you.